They told me I couldn't get on the family bus. Walk if you want to get there. So I took a taxi to the most expensive hotel in Miami Beach. I never thought my own son-in-law would say those words to me, looking at me as if I were some annoying stranger who had crashed their family vacation. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I'd tell. And if you, for a second, feel like this sounds familiar, I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me to keep unburdening myself. My name is Hope Anderson. I'm 62 years old, and my entire life was built around a single word: family. I was born in Queens, in a house with a small backyard of cracked paving stones, where my grandmother grew tomatoes and planted rose bushes that climbed up to the roof. It was there I learned that a woman is defined by what she gives, not by what she gets. That love is shown with a hot, home-cooked meal on the table, with clean and ironed clothes, with smiles, even when your heart is broken. That February morning, in front of the Golden Sands Hotel in Miami Beach, I was wearing my white cotton blouse, the one I had ironed 3 times until every crease was perfect, and my navy blue skirt that I had bought especially for this trip. In my hands, wrinkled from years of domestic work, I held a straw hat I'd found at a local flea market, thinking it would make me look elegant next to the ocean I had so dreamed of seeing. The smell of sunscreen and salt water mixed with the scent of my cheap perfume, the only one I could afford, as I watched my grandchildren run around the private shuttle bus I had helped pay for. Ethan, 8 years old, with his Superman t-shirt, was shouting with excitement about the excursion to Key Biscayne. Sophia, 5, was hugging her new doll while jumping from one foot to the other. They hadn't greeted me when I came down from the hotel. Their parents had taught them that Grandma was invisible. "Hurry up, Mom. We're going to be late," my daughter Jessica had told me that morning, using that tone she'd picked up at her government office job. Professional but distant. She was wearing a beach dress that cost more than my monthly rent, expensive sunglasses, and that expression she had perfected since she married Rob, the face of someone who no longer belongs to the neighborhood where she was born. I hurried. I always hurried for them. For 30 years, I got up at 5 in the morning to iron school uniforms, pack lunches, and drive kids to and from school while I worked cleaning other people's houses. I hurried when Jessica needed money for her business degree. I hurried when she got married and needed money for the party. I hurried when my grandchildren were born and she needed a free babysitter on weekends. But that morning, for the first time in decades, my hurry wasn't enough. I reached the shuttle, out of breath. My 62 years no longer forgave me for rushing, and saw that all the seats were taken. Rob's cousins, his parents, his aunts, even the driver had already closed the door. I tapped on the glass with trembling knuckles, smiling the way I'd smiled my whole life when I needed something. Rob lowered the window with that fake smile he used when he had bad news. "Hope, look, there's no more room, but don't worry, the marina isn't that far. If you want to get to the port, you can just grab a cab. We'll wait for you there." His words fell on me like stones in a still pond. Each syllable created ripples of humiliation that spread through my chest, my throat, my eyes, which filled with tears I didn't want to shed in front of strangers. But I helped pay for this trip," I murmured, my voice breaking. "I sold my mom's ring to contribute my share." "I know, and we really appreciate it. But look, it's full of older folks who need the comfort more than you do. You're strong, you can walk a little. It'll do you good." Rob pointed towards his parents, who were sitting comfortably in the front seats, with the air conditioning vents pointed right at them and personal water bottles. His mother, Carmen, looked at me in the rearview mirror with that expression she had perfected over the 10 years of our children's marriage, contempt disguised as pity. I searched for my daughter's eyes through the window. Jessica was focused on her phone, pretending she couldn't hear the conversation, pretending her mother wasn't being publicly humiliated by the man she had chosen as her husband. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen, probably uploading photos of her perfect family vacation where there was no room for the woman who gave her life. "Jessica," I said her name like a desperate prayer. She looked up for a second, saw me standing on the sidewalk with my ridiculous hat and my blouse wrinkled from the heat, and then looked back down at her phone. "Mom, just meet us there. We don't want to make everyone wait because of complications." The engine of the shuttle roared. The children screamed with excitement. And I was left alone on the sidewalk, holding my cheap beach bag filled with little gifts for my grandchildren who were now driving away without a backward glance. The hotel staff looked at me with that mix of curiosity and pity we reserve for other people's moments of public humiliation. A bellhop approached and asked if I needed help. I couldn't answer him because the words were stuck somewhere between my broken heart and my tight throat. I sat on a bench at the hotel entrance, under a palm tree that offered insufficient shade against the midday sun and the shame that burned me more than any ultraviolet ray. For the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to be disposable. As I sat on that bench, with the sound of the ocean in the background and my heart pounding like a drum in my chest, the memories began to flood in. Like when it rains and the dry earth absorbs every drop with desperation, my mind filled with all the times I had said yes when I should have said no. I closed my eyes and saw myself at 30, pregnant with Jessica, working at 3 different houses to pay for the apartment in Astoria where we lived. My hands were soft then. My knees didn't ache climbing stairs, and I had dreams bigger than a windowless bedroom and a stove that only worked half the time. Jessica's father had vanished when he found out about the pregnancy. "I'm not ready to be a father," he told me one August afternoon, while I was ironing his favorite shirt, that cruel irony of fate that makes us care for those who are about to abandon us until the very last day. He left with a small suitcase and empty promises to return soon. He never came back. For 20 years, I was a single mother at a time when that made you the neighborhood gossip and the family's shame. My sister Rose told me it was my fault for getting involved with just anyone. My mother, God rest her soul, reminded me every Sunday after church that a decent woman doesn't get pregnant out of wedlock. But Jessica was my light. Every dollar I earned scrubbing other people's floors, every humiliation I swallowed when my employers treated me like a piece of furniture, every night I fell asleep counting coins at the kitchen table. It was all worth it when I saw her studying under the lamp we had set up in the dining room. "Mommy, when I grow up, I'm going to buy you a big house," she would tell me as I sewed the hem of her school uniform for the 3rd time because she had grown and we didn't have money for a new one. "With a garden and a room just for you, with a TV and everything." I believed her, because mothers always believe their children, even when life teaches us again and again that love is not always returned in equal measure. When Jessica turned 16, I sold the gold chain my mother had given me on my first communion day to pay for her party. It wasn't the magazine-worthy Sweet 16 she dreamed of, but I rented the church hall, hired a local DJ, who wasn't the best but was what I could afford, and bought her a pink dress I found at a thrift store. That night, watching her dance with her friends, I thought it had all been worth it. Until I heard one of the mothers comment, "Poor Jessica, you can tell her mom did the best she could with so little." The comment hurt more than all the years of working double shifts and eating scarce meals. But I kept going. I always kept going. When Jessica wanted to study business at Queen's College, I worked night shifts at a bakery in addition to my daytime jobs. I would get home as she was getting up for classes. We'd pass each other in the kitchen like strangers sharing the same roof. I smelled of flour and exhaustion. She of cheap perfume and youth. "Thanks, Mom," she would say sometimes, but no longer with the same warmth as when she was a child. College had changed her. Now she had friends with new cars, boyfriends with money, dreams that didn't include apartments in working-class neighborhoods or mothers who cleaned other people's houses. The day she graduated, I put on my least old dress and sat in the back row of the auditorium. I watched her walk to the stage in her cap and gown, beautiful and elegant, having become the professional I always dreamed she would be. I cried with pride, but also with something I couldn't name then, and that I now know was loneliness. After the ceremony, we went to dinner at a restaurant I chose carefully. Not so expensive that it would break me, but not so humble that it would embarrass her in front of her classmates who had come with entire families. Fathers in expensive suits, and mothers with jewelry that sparkled under the lights. "Everything's going to change now, Mom," she told me that night, taking my hand across the table. "I'm going to get a good job and I'll get you out of this neighborhood. You'll see." But when she got a job with the city, she didn't move with me to a better place. She moved into an apartment in a fancy Long Island suburb by herself. "To be closer to work," she said. I stayed in Astoria, in the same apartment where I had raised her. But now it was lonelier than ever. She would visit on weekends. At first, every Saturday, then every 2 weeks, then once a month. She always arrived hungry for the food that only I knew how to make for her. Pot roast just the way she liked it, mac and cheese from scratch, freshly baked biscuits. She would fill her belly with nostalgia and go back to her new life, leaving me with dirty dishes and a heart that felt a little emptier each time. It was during one of those visits that she told me about Rob. He's an engineer, Mom. He works for a major construction firm. His parents have a house in Greenwich. She said it with that voice she used when she wanted to impress me, as if her boyfriend's family money was also her own. The first time she brought him home, Rob looked around my apartment with that expression the rich learn when they visit the poor, a mix of pity and discomfort they try to disguise with forced smiles. He sat on my old sofa as if he were afraid of catching poverty. "Your place is very cozy, Mrs. Anderson," he said, but his eyes said something else. Jessica was nervous. Every 5 minutes she got up to fix something that wasn't out of place, as if my home were a test she was failing in front of the man she wanted to win over. When they announced their engagement, I had already started saving for the wedding, dollar by dollar, putting what I could from each job into an old coffee can. Jessica told me not to worry, that they would take care of everything, but I knew that a mother has to contribute to her daughter's wedding, even if it's with the little she has. The day we went to pick out the wedding dress, I brought my 8 months of savings with me. Jessica tried on dresses that cost more than my salary for half a year. When she chose a particularly expensive one, her future mother-in-law, Carmen, commented, "It's gorgeous, sweetie. We'll take care of it. We don't want your mother to worry about such big expenses." It sounded generous, but I understood the message. Your mother can't afford this league. On the wedding day, I sat at the family table, but at the corner farthest from the bride and groom. During the father-daughter dance, Jessica danced first with Rob, then with her father-in-law, then with several of his uncles. When it was finally my turn, the song was already over and the DJ was putting on music for the young people. "Oh, Mom, the song's over," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We'll dance later, okay?" But later never came. That night, collecting the centerpieces they told me I could take, I understood that I had lost my daughter. Not because she had gotten married, but because she had decided I no longer fit into the life she was building. And now, 10 years later, sitting on this bench in Miami Beach, I realized that I had spent my entire life begging for a place in the heart of the person I loved most in the world. The sun was beginning to burn my bare shoulders, but the sting on the outside was nothing compared to the fire consuming me inside. The Miami heat grew more intense, but I remained seated, unable to move. It was as if my body had finally decided to stop, after decades of running after a family that always found excuses to keep me at a distance. A waiter from the hotel approached with a tray of fresh iced tea. "Would you like a glass, ma'am? You look overheated." His kindness took me by surprise. It had been so long since someone offered me something without my having to ask first, without it being my duty to serve others. "Thank you, young man," I murmured. And as the cold liquid touched my throat, I remembered I hadn't eaten breakfast. In the morning rush, preparing snacks for my grandchildren and getting myself ready to look presentable, I had forgotten about myself. As always. It was then that my phone rang. It was Jessica. "Mom, where are you? We got to the port and we don't see you." Her voice sounded impatient, like when she was a teenager and I was 5 minutes late picking her up from a party. "I'm at the hotel," I replied, my voice calmer than I expected. "Waiting for a taxi?" "Oh, Mom, don't be so dramatic. You're on your way, right? The kids are asking for you." A lie. The children hadn't asked for me during the entire trip. Ethan and Sophia saw me as part of the family furniture, useful when they needed someone to carry their backpacks or buy them ice cream, invisible the rest of the time. "Of course, sweetie. I'm on my way." I lied, but I didn't move from the bench. For the first time in my life, I had said I would do something and had no intention of doing it. As I waited for this strange feeling to pass, rebellion, freedom, my mind filled with all those small moments I had been ignoring, those invisible wounds that accumulate drop by drop until they become a river of resentment. Like last year, when Rob turned 40. Jessica organized a party at a fancy restaurant in Soho. I arrived an hour early to help with the preparations, carrying my gift, a hand-knitted sweater that had taken me 3 months to finish, every stitch made while watching soap operas in my empty apartment. "Oh, Mom, what a nice thought," Jessica said when she saw my gift wrapped in newspaper because I didn't have money for fancy wrapping paper. "But look, we already have a lot of gifts on the table. Maybe put it back there so it doesn't get damaged." My sweater ended up tucked away behind boxes of expensive whiskey and watches that gleamed under the lights. Rob didn't even open it that night. I found out weeks later that he had given it to their housekeeper. Or like every Christmas, when they invited me to dinner but sat me at the kids' table, so you can watch them and make sure they behave. While I cut Ethan's steak and wiped Sophia's spills, the adults talked about trips, investments, and plans that never included me. "You just have such a way with the children, Hope," Carmen would tell me with that fake smile she had perfected. "It's a natural talent." Translation: You are the family's free nanny. For years, every Sunday I would go to their house in Greenwich to make the family barbecue. I'd arrive at 10 in the morning carrying bags from the market. I bought the meat, the vegetables, the bread, because Jessica said I knew how to pick the good, cheap stuff better. I would cook for 12 people, serve, wash the dishes, and leave at 8 at night with the leftovers nobody else wanted. "Thanks, Mom." "Nobody cooks like you," Jessica would say as I packed up containers of beans and rice that would last me the whole week. It was her way of making me feel special for being her unpaid housekeeper. But what hurt the most were my birthdays. The year before, I turned 61. I woke up early, put on my least old dress, and waited. I waited for a call, a visit, even just a text message. At 2 in the afternoon, I called Jessica myself. "Oh, Mom, happy birthday. I completely forgot. We're at Rob's parents' house, you know how these family Sundays are. But I'll call you later, okay?" She didn't call later. At 9 o'clock that night, I bought myself a small cupcake from the corner bakery and ate it alone, in front of the television, watching an old Jimmy Stewart movie I already knew by heart. 2 days later, Jessica showed up with a bouquet of wilted flowers she'd bought on sale at the supermarket. "I'm so sorry, Mom. You know how it is, being a mom and a wife. But here are your flowers. I put them in water, but they died the next day. Just like my hope of being a priority in my daughter's life. This year, for my 62nd birthday, I didn't even wait. I went to the movies by myself, bought a large popcorn and a soda, and watched a romantic movie where the main character chose to love herself in the end. I cried in the darkness of the theater, not because of the movie, but because for the first time, I understood the protagonist. And now, sitting on this bench in Miami Beach, surrounded by the luxury I had never been able to afford but had helped to pay for, I realized my time to wake up had come. I took out my phone and searched for hotels in Miami Beach. Not cheap hotels, not motels, not places where a lady like me should stay. I looked for the most expensive hotel that appeared in the search. The Intercontinental Hotel, right on the ocean, with a spa, gourmet restaurants, and suites that cost more than my rent for 3 months. I dialed the number with trembling hands. "Good afternoon. Do you have availability for a suite with an ocean view?" "Of course, ma'am." "For how many nights?" I looked towards the horizon, where the sea blended with the sky, and for the first time in my life, I didn't think about the money. I didn't calculate how much I'd have left for the month's expenses. I didn't worry about being sensible. "For the rest of my vacation," I replied. I had made a decision. I didn't know exactly what it meant, but I knew I couldn't keep begging for affection from people who had decided I wasn't even worth a seat on their bus. I called a taxi. When it arrived, I told the driver, "To the Intercontinental Hotel, please." "Are you sure, ma'am? That hotel is very expensive." "I'm sure," I replied. And for the first time in 62 years, my voice sounded firm, decisive, like the voice of someone who knew exactly what she was worth. During the ride, my phone rang 3 times. It was Jessica. I didn't answer. For the first time in my life as a mother, I decided my daughter could wait. When the taxi pulled up in front of the Intercontinental, with its perfectly manicured palm trees and uniformed employees who greeted guests as if they were royalty, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades, that I, too, deserved to be treated with respect. The bellhop came to open my door. "Welcome to the Intercontinental, ma'am." "Thank you," I murmured, still not believing it was real. But it was real. And I was about to find out who Hope Anderson was, when no one was telling her what to do, where to sit, or whether she was welcome or not. For the first time in my life, I was going to find out what it felt like to be the main character in my own story. The suite at the Intercontinental had floor-to-ceiling windows that looked directly out onto the Atlantic Ocean. I had never seen so much blue water in a single glance. The king-size bed was covered with sheets so white they looked like clouds, and the bathroom had a tub that could fit my entire living room from Astoria. I stood at the entrance of the room for a full 10 minutes, not daring to touch anything. The bellhop who had brought up my tote bag, the only luggage I had for this trip, looked at me with curiosity. "Is everything all right, ma'am?" "Yes. It's just so beautiful," I managed to say. He smiled with the genuine kindness of someone used to guests being impressed by luxury. "Enjoy your stay. If you need anything, just dial 0. When he left, I sat on the sofa in the living area. My suite had a living area. And for the first time in hours, I breathed easily. The silence was different here. It wasn't the heavy silence of loneliness I knew from my apartment. It was the silence of peace. Until my phone rang. "Mom, where on earth are you? We've been waiting for you at the marina for 2 hours. The kids are asking questions, and Rob is furious because we missed the boat because of you." Jessica's voice was hysterical, just like when she was a teenager and couldn't find her favorite shoes 5 minutes before a big party. "I'm at my hotel," I replied, surprised by how calm my own voice sounded. "Which hotel?" "We're at the Golden Sands." "I'm at the Intercontinental." Silence. A silence so long I thought the call had dropped. "The inner what?" "Mom, that hotel costs a fortune. How are you going to pay for that? Are you crazy?" For the first time in my life, my daughter was talking to me as if I were a person with my own decision-making ability, even if it was to scold me. "I have my savings," I lied. The truth was, I was using the credit card I'd gotten for emergencies and had never touched. If this wasn't an emergency, I didn't know what was. "Mom, don't do anything stupid. Come over here right now. We need to talk." "No." The word came out of my mouth before my brain could process it. 62 years of life, and I had never used that word with my daughter. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean I'm not coming. You all have fun on your boat without me. I'm going to have fun in my hotel without you." "But Mom." I hung up, and I turned off the phone. I sat there staring at the black device in my hands, unable to believe what I had just done. I had hung up on my daughter. I had turned off my phone. I had said no. The world had not ended. 2 hours later, when I turned the phone on to check the time, I had 17 missed calls and 12 text messages. "Jessica." "Mom, please answer me." Jessica. "Rob says you're being unnecessarily dramatic." Jessica. "The kids don't understand why you left." Jessica. "This is ridiculous. Come over here." Rob, using Jessica's phone. "Hope, I think you're misinterpreting the situation. We just wanted you to be comfortable." Jessica. "Mom, Carmen says she always knew you were difficult." Jessica. "If you don't come, we're coming to get you." And finally, the message that made me understand I had hit the right nerve. Rob. "Your attitude is affecting the whole family." Jessica is crying. "I hope you're satisfied." Satisfied. As if my pain were some calculated revenge, and not the natural result of years of being treated like a second-class citizen in my own family. That night, I had dinner alone in the hotel restaurant. I ordered lobster, something I had never tasted because it had always seemed too expensive, too elegant for someone like me. The waiter treated me like any other guest, with respect, with attention, without that disguised pity I had learned to recognize in people's eyes. The lobster was delicious. The next morning, as I was having breakfast on the terrace overlooking the ocean, Eggs Benedict, another thing I'd never tried, I saw a familiar figure walking down the beach in the distance. It was Jessica, wearing her wide-brimmed hat and carrying that designer bag Rob had given her last year. She was heading towards the hotel. 10 minutes later, the room phone rang. "Mrs. Anderson, you have a visitor in the lobby. Your daughter. Tell her to come up," I replied, though a part of me wanted to say I wasn't in. When Jessica knocked on the suite door, I had already finished my breakfast and was sitting on the sofa, watching the sea. I didn't get up to open it immediately, as I had done my whole life. I waited for 3 knocks before I moved. When I opened the door, Jessica's eyes were swollen from crying, and she wore that scolded child expression she put on when she knew she'd done something wrong but didn't want to admit it. "Mom? Come in, Jessica." She walked in slowly, looking around the suite as if she were in a museum. Her eyes lingered on the unmade bed, the bottle of wine I'd ordered from room service the night before, the bathroom towels that were on the floor because for the first time in my life, I hadn't felt the need to pick them up immediately. "This must be costing you a fortune, Mom. That's not your problem." She sat on the armchair across from me, and for the first time since she was a child, she seemed small compared to me. "Mom, I don't understand what's happening. Rob says you're having some kind of midlife crisis." "Rob says?" I interrupted. "And what do you say, Jessica? What does my daughter think about all this?" She fell silent. It was a question she didn't know how to answer because for years she had stopped having her own opinions about how I was treated in her family. I think you're overreacting. The thing with the bus was just silly. Rob didn't mean any harm." "Silly?" My voice rose for the first time in the conversation. "Your husband leaves me stranded on the street and it's silly. But the marina isn't far. It was just a short taxi ride." "It's not about the taxi, Jessica. It's about the contempt. It's that they didn't ask me if I wanted to walk. It's that they decided for me. It's that they treated me like I was a burden." "That's not true." "Of course it's true." I stood up from the sofa, and she flinched as if I were about to yell. But I didn't yell. My voice came out firm, clear, like I had never heard it before. "I've been the burden in your marriage for 10 years, the awkward guest, the one who cooks for free, babysits for free, and sits wherever she's put without complaining. Mom, you know we love you. Do you love me? Or do you need me?" Jessica opened her mouth, but no sound came out. That question had hit its mark. "When was the last time you invited me to something where I didn't have to watch the kids or cook or clean? When was the last time Rob greeted me by my name and not as ma'am? When was the last time I felt welcome in your house instead of just tolerated?" Tears began to roll down Jessica's cheeks, but they were tears of frustration, not understanding. "And what do you want me to do? Divorce him? Fight with Rob over you?" That sentence hung in the air between us like an accidental confession. Jessica had just admitted that she knew exactly how they treated me, and she had chosen to do nothing about it. "I don't want you to fight with anyone, Jessica, but I'm also not going to keep begging for a place in my own daughter's life. But you don't understand. Rob comes from a different kind of family. His mother has always been difficult with you, but I can't change that." "You can't? Or you won't?" Jessica fell silent again. Finally, after several minutes, she whispered, "It's very complicated, Mom." "No, sweetie. What's complicated is explaining to a mother why her daughter chooses comfort over dignity. That's what's complicated." Jessica shot up from the chair as if it had burned her. "Fine. If that's what you think of me, then there's nothing more to talk about." "Jessica, wait." But she was already heading for the door. Before leaving, she turned back to me. "I hope you enjoy your expensive hotel, Mom. Because when you run out of money, don't come asking for help." The door slammed shut with a sharp crack that echoed through the suite. I was alone again, but this time, the silence didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like freedom. After Jessica left, I stood in front of the window of my suite, watching the ocean waves come and go with a calming regularity. For the first time in decades, I didn't have to be anywhere at a specific time. I didn't have to cook for anyone, clean for anyone, smile for anyone. I didn't have to be useful. The feeling was so strange, it was almost scary. Like when you first learn to drive and suddenly realize you can go anywhere you want, but you don't know where to go because you've never had the choice before. I called room service. "Good afternoon. Could you send up a bottle of red wine? Whatever you recommend." "Of course, Mrs. Anderson. Do you have a preference?" "Whatever is good for a woman who's learning to live on her own." The young man on the other end of the line chuckled kindly. "I have just the thing." Half an hour later, he arrived with a bottle of Californian Cabernet Sauvignon that cost more than my weekly grocery bill and poured me a glass on the terrace. "Is this your first time in Miami alone, ma'am?" "It's my first time anywhere alone," I replied without thinking. He nodded as if it were the most normal thing in the world. The best adventures start that way. Enjoy your wine. When he left, I raised my glass to the ocean and made a toast to myself, to Hope Anderson, who took 62 years to discover she existed. The wine tasted like freedom. That night, I slept for 12 straight hours. 12 hours without waking up, worried if Jessica needed something, if the grandchildren were hungry, if I had to get up early to go to the market. 12 hours of deep sleep in a bed that was all mine. I woke up at 10 in the morning, something I hadn't done since I was 20, and for the first time, I didn't feel guilty about it. I had breakfast in bed. I ordered pancakes with fried eggs, fresh brewed coffee, and freshly squeezed orange juice. I ate it slowly, savoring every bite, watching the families on the beach below, carrying umbrellas and coolers. Before, I would have felt envious of those families. I would have thought about how nice it would be to be there with my grandchildren, building sandcastles and teaching them to swim. But now, watching them from my window, I only felt peace. They had their lives. I had mine. And my life, for the first time, belonged completely to me. I decided to go down to the hotel spa. I'd never been to a spa. They had always seemed like places that were too expensive, too elegant for a woman who worked with her hands and had calluses on her feet from walking in cheap shoes. The spa receptionist greeted me with a genuine smile. "Welcome, Mrs. Anderson. Is this your first time with us?" "It's my first time at any spa," I admitted. "How exciting. Allow me to recommend our complete renewal package. It includes a relaxing massage, a hydrating facial, and a manicure and pedicure. It's perfect for ladies who want to pamper themselves." Pamper myself, another phrase I had never applied to myself. "How much is it?" I asked, bracing for the shock. $200, but we have a special discount for guests staying more than 3 nights. $200, more than I spent on food in 2 months, more than I had spent on myself in the last 5 years combined. "I'll take it," I said, before the practical part of my brain could protest. For the next 4 hours, strangers treated me with more care and respect than I had received from my family in years. The massage therapist, a woman named Carmen, funny that she had the same name as Jessica's mother-in-law, asked about my aches, my tensions, what made me feel stressed. "I've been carrying a heavy weight for a long time," I told her as she worked a knot in my back that had probably been there since Jessica got married. "Emotional weight is the heaviest of all," she responded wisely. "But today, we're going to let it all go." And we did. With every need of her hands, with every layer of cream on my face, with every file on my nails, I felt as if I were shedding years of accumulated exhaustion. When I left the spa, I didn't recognize myself in the elevator mirror. My skin looked radiant. My hands were soft for the first time in decades. I had lost that permanent expression of worry etched on my forehead. I looked happy. That afternoon, I decided to walk along the main strip. I had no specific destination, no need to be anywhere at a certain time. I just walked, stopping wherever I pleased, entering shops I would have previously considered too expensive for me. In one boutique, I tried on a turquoise dress that made my eyes look brighter. It was my size, something hard to find when you're 62 and no longer have the body of a 20-year-old. And it fit perfectly. "You look beautiful, ma'am," the saleswoman told me. "That color was made for you. How much is it?" I asked, touching the soft fabric. $150. $150 for a dress. Me, who had bought all my clothes at thrift stores and flea markets for the last 20 years. "I'll take it," I said. "Would you like to wear it out?" "Yes, please." I left the store wearing my new dress, feeling like a completely different woman. The matching heels I bought, another $50 that the Hope from a week ago would have considered an outrage, made me walk straighter, with my head held high. People looked at me, not with pity, not with condescension, but with the respect given to a woman who knows her worth. That night, I dined at the hotel's most elegant restaurant. I requested a table for one without feeling ashamed of being alone. The waiter treated me like a queen, recommending dishes, explaining the wines, ensuring every detail of my dinner was perfect. I ate grilled octopus with a side of vegetables I didn't even know existed. I drank a glass of white wine that tasted of flowers and the sea. For dessert, I ordered a chocolate souffle that was like a caress for the soul, all in solitude, all in peace. While I was sipping my coffee, my phone vibrated. It was a message from Jessica. "Mom, we're flying back to New York tomorrow. Rob managed to change the tickets. If you want to come with us, meet us at the airport at 3 p.m., Terminal 2. I read the message 3 times. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of what had happened, no invitation to talk about what I had felt. Just an order disguised as an invitation. For the first time in my life as a mother, I didn't reply immediately. I left the phone on the table and continued drinking my coffee, watching the hotel lights reflect on the pool. I had a decision to make, but for the first time, I was going to make it thinking about myself, not about Jessica, not about Rob, not about my grandchildren, not about what people would say, about me. At 11 o'clock that night, after I had returned to my suite and put on my new pajamas, silk, another extravagance I had bought that afternoon, I picked up my phone and wrote my reply. "Jessica, I'm going to stay a few more days. Enjoy your flight." I sent the message and turned off the phone. For the second time in my life, I had chosen my own happiness over the expectations of others. And the world kept spinning. I poured myself another glass of wine and went out onto my suite's terrace. The ocean looked black under the moon, but the lights from the other hotels created a diamond necklace along the beach. "Cheers, Hope," I said to myself, raising my glass to the night. "To all the lost years of being who others wanted you to be, and to all the years you have left of being who you really are." The sea breeze carried my words away, but I knew the universe had heard them. 3 days after my family returned to New York without me, I received a call I wasn't expecting. It was Rob. "Hope, we need to talk. Urgently. Jessica is a wreck. She hasn't eaten. She hasn't slept. The kids are asking for you, and I don't know what to tell them anymore." His voice sounded different. It lacked its usual arrogant confidence. It sounded worried, maybe even scared. "And what do you want me to do, Rob? Come back. Let's fix this misunderstanding. My mom said she's willing to talk to you, to clear the air." Carmen wanted to talk to me. The woman who, in the 10 years of our children's marriage, had only spoken to me to give me indirect orders. "Hope, the kids need lunch. Hope, we're out of coffee. Hope, weren't you going to help with the dishes? Oh, really? And what does Carmen want to talk to me about? Look, I think we all made mistakes. But Jessica is suffering a lot, and you're her mom. Moms don't abandon their daughters." There it was. The low blow. The emotional blackmail disguised as family wisdom. Moms don't abandon their daughters. But daughters can abandon their mothers, right? Rob, I didn't abandon anyone. I just decided to stop begging for affection where I'm clearly not welcome. But you are welcome. We all love you. It's just that, well, sometimes there are misunderstandings. Misunderstandings? My voice rose higher than I intended. Leaving me stranded on the street was a misunderstanding. It was a lack of communication. "I thought you'd prefer to be comfortable in a taxi." "Rob, please. We both know that's not true." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Finally, Rob sighed. "What do you want me to do? Apologize?" "Fine. I apologize. Are you happy now? Now please come back." That apology sounded like when children say sorry because their parents force them to, not because they actually understand what they did wrong. "Thank you for the apology, Rob. But I'm not coming back." "What do you mean you're not coming back? Are you going to stay in Miami forever?" "I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know what I'm not going to do. I'm not going back to a family where I have to be grateful for crumbs of affection." I hung up before he could answer. That night, I didn't sleep well. For the first time since I'd arrived in my suite, I felt restless. Not from guilt, I didn't feel that anymore, but from a strange mix of anticipation and nerves. It was as if I was waiting for something important to happen. The next day, while having breakfast on the terrace, I saw something that nearly made me spit out my coffee. It was Carmen, walking through the hotel lobby with all the dignity her 70 years and her silver-handled wooden cane would allow. 5 minutes later, my suite phone rang. "Mrs. Anderson, you have a visitor. A Mrs. Carmen Hayes is requesting to come up to your room." "Send her up," I replied, though a part of me wanted to say I wasn't there. I got up, put on an elegant robe I'd bought in the hotel shop, and waited. When I heard the slow footsteps in the hallway, I knew the time had come for the conversation we had avoided for 10 years. She knocked 3 times before I opened the door. Carmen stood there, dressed in her usual gray business suit, her pearls, and that expression of moral superiority she had perfected over decades of marriage to a successful man. Hope. Carmen, come in. She entered my suite like an inspector, evaluating every detail with the critical eyes of someone used to judging others by their material possessions. She stopped in front of the window overlooking the ocean. This room must cost a fortune. It does. And how are you paying for it? There it was. The direct question she'd been wanting to ask for years. How a woman like me could afford luxuries like this. With my money, Carmen. Your money? She turned to me with that little smile she reserved for when she thought she'd caught someone in a lie. Hope, you don't have this kind of money. And how would you know how much money I have? Because I know you. You clean houses. You live in Astoria. You buy your clothes at flea markets. Don't tell me you suddenly won the lottery. I sat on the sofa, motioning for her to take a seat as well. She remained standing, probably because sitting down would have implied we were on equal footing. Carmen, why did you come here? I came to talk to you, woman to woman, about Jessica. What about Jessica? She's destroying her marriage over this whim of yours. A whim. My refusal to be humiliated was a whim. How is she destroying her marriage? Rob is worried. The kids are confused. The whole family is talking about the drama you created. And Jessica is in the middle, feeling like she has to choose between her husband and her mother. And who would you choose in her place? Carmen stared at me as if the question were ridiculous. Her husband, of course. Marriage comes first. The children get married and make their own lives. But you are forcing Jessica to choose. No, Carmen. You all forced me to choose. Between my dignity and your family's comfort. And I've already chosen. Your dignity! She laughed. That fake laugh she used when she wanted to belittle someone. What dignity are you talking about? We give you a place to stay. We feed you. We invite you to all the family events. You give me leftovers. You invite me so I can work for free. And you tolerate me when you have no other choice. You're exaggerating. Am I? I stood up from the sofa, and for the first time in 10 years, Carmen had to look up to meet my eyes. Am I exaggerating when your son left me stranded on the street? Am I exaggerating when you seat me with the children while you all talk about trips you'll never invite me on? Am I exaggerating when you pretend not to hear me every time I speak? You just don't understand our family dynamic. Oh, I understand it perfectly. I'm useful when you need a free nanny, a free cook, a free maid. But I'm invisible when you want to make plans, make decisions, or simply have an adult conversation. The Carmen fell silent for the first time since I'd known her. Finally, she sat down on the armchair, as if the weight of standing had become too much. And what do you want? For us to treat you like a guest of honor at every gathering? I want you to treat me like a human being who deserves basic respect. Not special honor. Basic respect. But you've always been so helpful. You never complained before. And did that give you the right to take advantage of me? Carmen stared out the window at the ocean, as if the waves would give her the right answer. Rob is very worried, she finally said. He says Jessica has changed since you left. That she's questioning things she never questioned before. Like what? Like why he didn't defend her when the bus incident happened. Like why we never include her in important family decisions. Like why he always assumes you're going to cook when she comes over. And what does Rob say to that? That that's just how things are. That families have established dynamics and you can't just change them because someone decided to get offended. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It was a bitter but genuine laugh. You know what, Carmen? Rob is right about one thing. Families do have established dynamics. But those dynamics can be changed. The problem is you don't want to change because the current arrangement suits you perfectly. And what do you suggest? Nothing. It's not my problem anymore. I've already changed my dynamic. Now you all have to decide if you want to change yours. Carmen stood up with difficulty, leaning on her cane. Is this final? You're not coming back? I'm not coming back to who I was. If you want to get to know who I am now, you're going to have to make an effort. She walked to the door, but before opening it, she turned back to me. And Jessica? Don't you care about the damage you're doing to your own daughter? Jessica is a 35-year-old adult, Carmen. It's time she learned to make difficult decisions, just like I had to learn at 62. When she left, I stood in the same spot for several minutes. I had just had the most honest conversation of my life with the woman who had intimidated me the most for a decade, and I had won. Not because I had convinced her of anything, but because for the first time, I had spoken my complete truth without apologizing for it. I poured myself a glass of wine and toasted myself again. To the conversations we should have had 10 years ago, I said towards the sea, and to never having to have them again. A week after Carmen's visit, I decided to do something I'd never done in my life. I was staying in Miami, not because I was running from something, but because I was running towards something, towards myself. I moved from the expensive hotel to a furnished apartment in the heart of the city, not because I couldn't afford the hotel, my credit card still had room, but because I wanted to know what it felt like to truly live alone, without the luxury service constantly reminding me how much money I was spending. The apartment was small but bright, with a balcony that overlooked a vibrant street. From my window, I could see local families going to the market, kids playing soccer in the afternoon, and grandmothers sitting on their stoops, chatting while they knitted. It was like going back to the neighborhood where I grew up, but without the weight of painful memories. I spent my first night in the apartment organizing my new life. I had bought the basics: plates, glasses, sheets, towels, all new, all chosen by me, all in colors that I liked. Nothing inherited, nothing given with strings attached, nothing that came with the obligation of gratitude. That night, I cooked for myself for the first time in decades. Not for Jessica, not for Rob, not for the kids. For me. I made scrambled eggs with tomatoes and onions, tortillas from the corner shop, and fresh brewed coffee with cinnamon. I ate slowly, savoring every bite, with no rush to wash the dishes or attend to anyone else. The silence of my apartment wasn't the heavy silence of loneliness I had known in Queens. It was the light silence of peace. The next day, I went to explore the local market. The women selling vegetables treated me with the natural warmth of those who recognize an equal. There was no condescension, no pity, just the simple hospitality of hardworking people towards another hardworking person. "Are you new to the neighborhood, ma'am?" asked Maria, who was selling the reddest tomatoes I had ever seen. "Yes, I just arrived from New York." "Ah, a New Yorker. Welcome. You're going to like it here. This neighborhood is quiet, the people are good." She gave me an extra tomato, "So you can taste how they grow here." When I returned to my apartment, I realized that 2 hours had passed, and I hadn't thought once about Jessica, Rob, or whether they were okay without me. For the first time in my 35 years as a mother, I had lived 2 full hours where my identity didn't revolve around my daughter. That afternoon, I decided to do something I had been putting off for years. I called Luce, my only real friend from New York. We had worked together cleaning houses when we were young, but she had followed a different path. She had married a good man, raised her children without losing her own identity in the process, and now, at 60, she owned a small clothing boutique in her neighborhood. "Hope, where have you been? I've been trying to reach you for weeks." "I'm in Miami, Luz." "In Miami? By yourself?" "By myself." I told her everything. The humiliation with the bus, the break with Jessica, my new life in an apartment by the sea. Luce listened without interrupting, making those sounds of understanding that only true friends make. "It's about time," she said when I finished my story. "Hope, I've been waiting for years for you to stand up to that ungrateful family. You knew how they treated me? How could I not? Every time we talked, you'd tell me about all the things you did for them and how little you got in return. But every time I suggested you set some boundaries, you told me that's not what mothers do." She was right. For years, Luce had tried to open my eyes, and I had preferred to keep them shut. "So, what are you going to do now?" she asked me. "I don't know. For the first time in my life, I don't have a plan. I just know I'm not going back to being who I was before." "Well, I'm proud of you. Discovering who you really are at 62 is a gift not everyone gives themselves." After hanging up with Luz, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea and, for the first time, allowed myself to imagine a future that didn't include being Jessica's mother as my sole identity. What did I like to do? What had I wanted to be before my life became completely defined by the needs of others? I remembered that in high school I loved to write. Little stories, cheesy poems about love and life. My English teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, always told me I had a way with words. But when I got pregnant with Jessica, the dreams of being a writer were packed away in the same trunk where I stored all the other dreams that weren't compatible with single motherhood and financial survival. Was it too late to take them out of that trunk? The next day, I bought a notebook at the neighborhood stationery store. A nice one with a hardcover and thick pages that felt important under my pen. That night, sitting on my balcony while listening to the sounds of the city going to sleep, I wrote my first words in 30 years. My name is Hope Anderson, and I'm 62 years old. I've just met myself. It wasn't great literature, but they were my words, my story, my truth. 3 days later, as I was walking along the beachfront path, watching the fishing boats return with the day's catch, my phone rang. It was Jessica. "Mom, please. We need to talk." Her voice sounded different. Less demanding, more pleading. "I'm listening, sweetie. I want to come see you. Not Rob, not the kids, not the family, just me. Can I?" It was the first time in years that Jessica wanted to see just me, with no family agenda, no shared obligations. "Why do you want to come?" "To apologize. To really talk to you, without Rob interrupting or the kids distracting us. To try and understand why it took losing my mom to realize I'd never truly valued her." Those words felt like a balm on wounds I had carried for years. But they also made me cautious. Pretty words are easy to say when the consequences of your actions finally catch up to you. "Jessica, I'm no longer the mother who waited patiently for you to realize my worth. If you want to meet the woman I've become, you're welcome. But I'm not going back to who I was just to make your life more comfortable. I don't want you to go back to who you were. I want to meet who you are now. And I want you to meet who I'm trying to become." There was something in her voice I hadn't heard in years. Genuine humility. Not the performative kind she used when she wanted something, but the real humility of someone who had finally understood she had lost something precious. "All right, you can come, but you're coming to my home, my space, and on my terms. Whatever you say, Mom." After hanging up, I stared at the ocean for a long time. Jessica was coming to find me, but I was no longer the woman who had left New York. I was someone new, someone who had learned to value herself. That night, before falling asleep, I wrote in my notebook, "Today, my daughter asked for my forgiveness. But the most important thing isn't that she has changed. The most important thing is that I changed so much that I now deserve a sincere apology instead of crumbs of affection." For the first time in decades, I fell asleep smiling. Rebirth wasn't just a metaphor. It was something you could touch, smell, and taste. It tasted like fresh coffee on my balcony, smelled of salt air and freedom, and felt like blank pages waiting to be filled with a new story. My story, finally. 6 months later, as I write these lines on my balcony watching the sunset paint the sky orange over the Atlantic, I can say with certainty that the woman who got on that family shuttle in New York no longer exists. Jessica came to visit 3 weeks after our phone call. She arrived alone, as promised, carrying a small suitcase and an expression I hadn't seen on her face since she was a little girl. Genuine vulnerability. The first night, we had dinner in my apartment. I cooked because I like to cook, not because it was my obligation. And for the first time in years, we had a woman-to-woman conversation, not one between a mother desperate for approval and a daughter bestowing crumbs of attention. "Mom, I have to tell you something," she said as we washed the dishes together. "Since you left, Rob and I have been having problems." "What kind of problems?" I started to question things I'd never questioned before, like why we always expected you to cook whenever you came over. Like why we never asked you what you wanted to do at family gatherings. Like why Rob was allowed to talk to you the way he did. Jessica dried her hands and looked me directly in the eyes for the first time in years. And Rob didn't know what to say. He'd get angry, say I was changing, that you had put all these crazy ideas in my head. Until one day I asked him, "If your mom came to visit, would you expect her to cook for everyone and watch the kids?" And he just stood there, silent, because he knew the answer was no. I sat on the sofa in my living room. Jessica sat across from me, and for the first time, I felt like I was talking to my daughter. Not the version of my daughter she had molded to fit into her marriage, And what happened after that? We had a huge fight. Rob told me that if I couldn't be the wife he needed, then maybe we had made a mistake getting married. And for the first time in 10 years, I told him that maybe he was right. Jessica fell silent for a moment, fiddling with her wedding ring. Mom, I think I got married so young that I never learned how to be myself within a marriage. I was always the wife Rob needed, the daughter-in-law his parents wanted, the mom the kids demanded, but I was never Jessica. And who is Jessica? I asked, with genuine curiosity. I don't know. That's what I came here to find out. If you could reinvent yourself at 62, maybe I can do it at 35. The next 5 days were the most honest we had shared since she was a teenager. We walked along the boardwalk, went to the market together, and cooked meals we both liked without wondering what Rob would think. Jessica met my new friends from the neighborhood, saw my writing notebook, and listened to my plans of maybe opening a small home-cooked food business. Are you really thinking of staying here forever? She asked on her last night. I don't know. For the first time in my life, I'm living in the present without obsessively planning the future. But I do know that I'm not going back to New York to be who I was before. What if things get better? What if Rob changes, if he learns to respect you? Jessica, I don't need Rob's respect to feel valuable anymore. It would be nice, of course, but my self-worth no longer depends on the approval of others, not even yours. Those words hurt her. I could see it in her eyes. But I could also see that she understood them. Do you hate me, Mom? No, sweetie. I love you. But I no longer love you with desperation. I love you with freedom. It's different. The day Jessica left, we hugged at the airport like we hadn't hugged in years. With no rush, no interruptions, no tension from knowing Rob was waiting in the car. Thank you for showing me that it's never too late to choose yourself, she whispered in my ear. Thank you for coming to meet your new mom, I replied. In the months that followed, Jessica and I built a completely new relationship. We talk on the phone once a week, but our conversations no longer revolve around her problems or my services. We talk about books, movies, her plans to study psychology online, and my experiences writing the stories of the women at the market. She tells me Rob has had to learn to participate more at home, to cook for his own children, to not take for granted that a woman would always be available to cater to his needs. It hasn't been easy, but Jessica says their marriage is better now that it's based on mutual respect instead of automatic roles. The kids miss me, but Jessica explains that Grandma is on an adventure, writing a book, getting to know the ocean. Ethan sends me drawings via text of mermaids that look like me. Sophia asks if I'll teach her to swim when she comes to visit. Yes, they're going to come. But they're going to come to my house, to my world, as guests who respect their host's space, not as owners of my services. Rob called me once, 3 months after Jessica's visit. He apologized. Not the forced apology he'd given me before, but one that came from truly understanding what he had done wrong. Hope, I want you to know that I've reflected a lot on how I treated you. Jessica helped me understand that you weren't our employee. You were our family. And I treated you as if you were invisible. Thank you for telling me that, Rob. Is there any chance you could visit us in New York? The kids miss you so much. Rob, I miss my grandchildren too. But if I'm going to visit, it will be on different terms. As a guest, not as free domestic help. I understand. Whatever you say. And I'll be staying in a hotel, not at your house. You don't feel comfortable in our house? I feel more comfortable knowing I have my own space. That I can leave when I decide to, not when you all get tired of me. Rob accepted my terms without protest. Maybe he had learned something from all this too. Last week I opened my small business. It's called Hope's Kitchen, and I sell home-cooked food at the local market on weekends. Chili on Saturdays, homemade pies on Sundays, and during the week, I make artisanal soups to order. The profits won't make me rich, but they allow me to pay my rent and continue living this life I built from scratch. Maria, the lady who sells tomatoes, told me the other day, Hope, you came here like a sad woman running from something. But now I look at you and you're a joyful woman who ran towards something better. She was right. I had run from humiliation, but I had run towards dignity. Last night, while organizing the photos on my phone, I found one Jessica had taken of me the day they left me on the hotel sidewalk. I was sitting on that bench, with my ridiculous hat and my wrinkled blouse, watching the shuttle drive away. I looked small, lost, broken. I deleted it. Now I have new photos. Me on my balcony writing. Me at the market selling my food. Me walking on the beach at dawn. Me laughing with my new friends from the neighborhood. Me, alive, present, the main character of my own story. Sometimes people ask me if I don't regret abandoning my family. As if a 62-year-old woman doesn't have the right to choose her own life. I tell them I didn't abandon anyone. I simply stopped abandoning myself. Have you experienced something similar? Do you know someone who has had to choose between being loved and being respected? Tell me in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Maybe these words will reach someone who needs to hear them. Someone who is sitting on her own bench, watching the bus of a life that was never truly hers drive away. To that woman, I want to say, it's never too late to get up from that bench and walk towards your own freedom. The world is full of buses, but there's only one you. Don't waste it begging for a place where you are not valued.